Hello, Know-It-All Nation. Welcome back to Dave Knows Wrestling. It is I, your host, David Lee, and joining me today, a very special guest of Xenia Did That. Please welcome everyone, Xenia.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being on here. Now, you have some great content, so if you guys haven't checked her out yet, please check her out. And also, keep posted to your Twitter, because you're going to be announcing something soon, right, that people probably going to want to know.
Yes, there's a giveaway coming up on my Twitter for holiday season because, of course, I couldn't leave everyone without a holiday gift. So it's 2 in 1. It's an announcement and also a giveaway. So stay tuned for that.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so Xenia, tell us more about you and what you do before we get into today's discussion.
I pretty much do all things wrestling, but with a focus on inclusion and specifically inclusion for women. And that includes my YouTube channel, where I do lots of interviews, but also lots of analytics and video essays that, again, sometimes focus more so on feminism in wrestling. I also do non-wrestling stuff. I do food reviews. I do unboxings, but mostly, as it said, all things wrestling. So interviews, video essays, ring announcing, color commentary, analytics, as well as, pre-show analytics, post-show analytics. So everything that you can imagine that has to do with the world of graps, I'm in there.
I love that. And, it's a pleasure to be working with you again. All right. So, yeah, again, check out Xenia Did That if you haven't seen it already. And if you have seen it, watch it again. Watch more. Just keep checking out the
And like you did mention, I am a longtime supporter of Dave Knows Wrestling. And we have worked together previously, and I'm glad to be back.
And on that, I also really enjoy your public speaking tours and things you've done, because I think you've done a great job of just educating people, especially what I think is missing in today's wrestling is a lot of the mainstream casual fans I feel are kind of alienated. And I think you do a great job of informing people and educating people and bringing in some of the masses, making it more palatable for today's society.
Thank you. That's definitely one of my goals. And I have done, like you mentioned, some public speaking on, scholarly platforms outside of wrestling. And I have attempted to link wrestling to that. I did have some public talks on wrestling, and I actually have one of them on my channel. And I'm proud of the video name that I gave it because it's called I Told Normal People About Wrestling. And I had a full-blown public talk about kayfabe, which, again, some people are probably not going to be happy with that I just went out there and told casuals about kayfabe, but I did. And I'm proud of it, and I'm doubling down.
That's actually my favorite thing you've done personally. That's my personal favorite
thank you.
Of many things. Okay, so all right, let's get it. Speaking of inclusion, and we had something which we actually didn't, when we decided to do this, we didn't know what was going to happen. But just this past Monday, WWE has done something that they actually haven't done in a while. A lot of people think they've never done it, but they have done it in the past. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Monday, we had an intergender wrestling match. Akira Tozawa took on Rhea Ripley. So what are your thoughts about this match that has just happened on Monday?
First of all, I am just glad that it happened. Like, sometimes when you're pulling for a cause and you're not really succeeding much, and then suddenly you get a breadcrumb, you're like, whoa, let me just savor in this moment. Let me, think about what it was like later, and let me just enjoy it now. And like you mentioned, it's not like they've never done it. They actually have. And we did have an official, again, man-on-woman match quite recently. We had Sasha Banks take on Reggie. But mostly what bothers me about those usually is how they're done. Because I also do have a video on my channel, again, a pretty controversial one. It's called Baby Faces Should Hit Women. In wrestling, in the ring.
Yes, right.
That's a good disclaimer to have, right? That's necessary. It's just that I analyzed in this video the dynamics and the circumstances under which wrestlers are actually allowed to hit women in larger companies. And it's almost always a babyface man hitting a heel woman. And if it's a babyface. Or, obviously the obvious trope of the bad guy heel attacking an innocent and defenseless woman. That's how it goes most of the time. And to me, that just defies everything that we're trying to achieve, because by normalize intergender wrestling, we're trying to tell people that women are equal competitors, that women are not inferior to men. But then if you're making it a bad guy trait to even engage with a woman in the ring, then we're not even achieving anything. I actually recently had one of my tweets go semi-viral, maybe not even in a good way, when the, dearly beloved Scotty Tuhati announced on Twitter that he's not willing to wrestle women. And as a reason, he stated that he now has a daughter and he, can't imagine hurting a woman in the same way that he would hurt a man, which to me personally really, really rubbed me the wrong way. And I did get snappy with it because he concluded the tweet with, or maybe I am out of touch. And I went like, yes, you are out of touch. because what if he had a son? Would he stop hitting men? Like, right. how does that logic work in any way, shape, or form? And again, there's, as I said, some people got really, really mad. To me, there's no unsexist reason to not wrestle a woman. Like, any reason that you give me, it's at its core sexist. And, I did kind of get to bask in my rightfulness later, because it did come out that he apparently was booked in a match against a woman and then pulled out when he found out that the woman was trans, which, in that more people agreed with me that that's not okay. And, to me, that's, I think, where that stance actually stemmed from, and not actually his daughter or his any other views. I'm not saying he's a horrible person, not at all. I don't know him personally, and, most of us don't. I'm just saying that this view where it's inherently bad to face a woman in the ring just should go. It's just outdated.
There is something, especially in media, where there is this mentality that women, and just in society as a whole, like, I think there's this mentality that women are treated differently or need to be coddled or protected. Like, for example, if you see action movies, like if you saw the Punisher, the last Punisher movie, which I don't know if you or anybody saw it, but
I did not.
the director is female, and she specifically wanted the Punisher to shoot a woman, like, specifically, because she's like, all these action movies, like, guys get shot all the time, but like women almost never get shot in movies. In movies. And
also, if you look at fight scenes in movies, in like action movies, there would usually be a female character who's this like, oh, badass fighter, karate, spy, whatever. But then they're usually the bad guy, going back to the heel trope, to the ladyface hitting a heel woman. And there would usually be a circumstance where the main character, the hero, would be like, no, but I don't want to hit a woman. And then she would in some way deserve it. Like taunt him or hit him first, which to me, that is so much more harmful and toxic than just a normal intergender wrestling match. Because a lot of people like to bring up the argument of, oh no, intergender wrestling promotes domestic violence, which to me, that's also just completely unrelated, just completely just nonsense. Because on the one hand, a lot of people like to say that, and that's true, that a person of any gender can be a victim of domestic violence. So why does it in your mind only promote it when it's a guy and a girl? But then also, is domestic violence a gendered issue? Yes, it absolutely is, because it largely and mostly affects women. But also, why do you only care when it's a woman trying to be empowered, when it's a woman trying to showcase herself as strong and worthy of being an equal competitor? Like, why is it the only circumstance when you suddenly start to care for domestic violence? Like, that to me is just so far-fetched.
Now, I do have to say one thing, though. For myself, and I think a lot of men, though, see, one of the problems is, and I believe other wrestlers have said this too, is that ever since we were children, we were raised with this mentality, do not hit girls, like, specifically. So it is something that a mentality that we've had instilled in us. Like, we were told, now I understand, the greater, and I'm pretty sure that you would agree, is that the greater idea is, don't hit anybody. Like,
yes, exactly, yes. And as a feminist, and someone who was growing up feminist 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that was not as mainstream as it is now, not as accepted as it is now, which is still not fully accepted, but it was even more out there, it was even more unusual to people. The first argument that you usually hear is, "Oh, you're a feminist, so I can hit you." Like, that's literally not how any of that works.
I've never heard that before.
That's also, I grew up in Eastern Europe, so maybe that's why. Where, it's unfortunately in Eastern Europe we have an epidemic of domestic violence. In lots of countries, it's decriminalized. It's not even a criminal offense to hit your officially wedded wife, and it's just it's a thing. But also, again, as a feminist in Eastern Europe, you are a feminist because you want men to stop hitting women. And then they're like, "Oh, so now we can hit you." No, you have been. I'm sidetracking a lot, but it's just such a profound topic. Like, one of the things that just baffled me probably the most throughout my years of doing research for my feminism agenda is that apparently domestic violence, gendered domestic violence against women has existed since Stone Age. Like, there's recovered remains of female specimen that were killed inside their shelter with blunt force to the head, and it's just, there's not much explanation other than domestic violence. And it's like, it's the oldest issue in the history of intergender relations. And you can't tell me that, circling back to wrestling, when women are finally somewhat perceived as equal competitors, when women are choosing to step in the ring, and especially since we're talking about wrestling, we're not even talking about MMA, we're not even talking about boxing. You're supposed to protect your opponent, and you're supposed to protect your female opponent just as much. And I've heard wrestlers tell me that, "Oh, but she's smaller than the guy, but she's skinnier than the guy. Like, what if I accidentally knock her out?" Which has happened, obviously. But you could accidentally knock out a guy also. And we're not bothered when Dominic Mysterio, who's twice the size of his father, attacks him, which would also qualify as domestic violence if you want to go there, if it's a, child on father abuse. But no one has a problem with that. But the second it's a woman, suddenly everyone is a social justice warrior.